As we mentioned earlier, the criteria for proving libel differs depending on who you are and what type of libel plaintiff you are. So let's take a look at what the options might be. People who are in the public eye have a greater burden of proof when it comes to libel, and there's two main areas that we're going to look at. One is a public official, one is a public figure. So a public official, somebody who's in government, responsible over government affairs, is important to the public from a governmental standpoint. Not everyone who gets paid by the government fits this bill. This person has to have some significance to the public. Now, the other area is a public figure. This is someone who chooses to be in the public spotlight. So I want you to think in terms of celebrity, but they're not the only types of people that we might be looking at. And we have actually a couple different types of public figures, all-purpose and limited purpose. We used to have involuntary. That's sort of gone out of popularity, and we don't really see that very much. But we see much more so the all-purpose public figure and limited purpose. So we're going to see what they are. An all-purpose public figure is somebody who's famous. Their fame is widespread. They're a celebrity. I have Kate Winslet here. She was actually involved in a libel suit and related to actually her body image and her desire not to falsify her body image. She feels that women should just age the way they do, and someone accused her of using, some type of beauty augmentation, and so she sued for that. They occupy a position of such pervasive power that they're deemed a public figure for all purposes, and their proof burden is actual malice. Now, an example of this is Wayne Newton, and he sued NBC over a series of reports that focus on his relationship with mafia figures under investigation in Las Vegas, where he, of course, was quite a popular performer. It was actually the initial ruling went against NBC, but the judgment was thrown out by the Ninth Circuit, which said that he'd failed to prove clear and convincing evidence that NBC was purposely reckless when they published the information. We also have what are called limited purpose public figures. Now, these are people who get public figure status within the framework of a very narrow set of circumstances. So the photo that I've shown you here, these are the parents of Trayvon Martin. At the moment that their son died, they didn't become public figures, but once they inserted themselves into this controversy and the movement of Black Lives Matter and all of that, and really became the face of a movement, now they are limited purpose public figures. They voluntarily participated in this particular aspect of the controversy. Now, when you're an involuntary public figure, sometimes there are certain circumstances that will put you in the courtroom. And in the case here, Richard Jewell, this was a really unfortunate case. Richard Jewell was a security guard, and he actually found the Atlanta bomb during the Olympics in 1996. He went on all these news shows and talked about how he'd found this and what a hero he was. But then pretty soon police started to hone in on him as the suspect. The FBI ended up clearing him, and the Attorney General at the time, Janet Reno, apologized, and the question was this libelous or not? And what the court found is that there was no malice, that he had made himself a public figure by going on these TV shows and being written about in newspapers and magazines, and really the fact that he was a public figure and there was no evidence that anyone knew that the information written about him was false. In fact, he was under investigation. It was more the investigation that went wrong as opposed to the reporting. Now, private figure is everybody who doesn't qualify as a public figure. So in this case, you have to prove negligence, not actual malice, and we talked about that a little bit before. There are exceptions to that. California, Colorado, Indiana, Alaska, and New York, the burden of proof is higher on on the private figures as well. Now, here's a case talking about libel in terms of a private figure. This was a parent-teacher relationship gone wrong, where a newspaper published a negative story about a teacher based primarily on testimony from parents who obviously did not like her teaching style. And actually what they determined was that this was indeed negligence, because the newspaper did not get enough sources, and they only relied on sources who really had ill will toward the subject of this story.